Welcome back to Godless and Grounded. Since the beginning of civilization, human beings have been storytellers. We pass down tales, create myths, and build systems of belief that try to explain the world around us. Before science, before books, before even written language, there was an endless curiosity in our minds. A need to know why the sun rises, why storms happen, why people die, and what happens after death. Religion, in many ways, began as humanity's earliest attempt at answering these big, frightening questions. But here's the important thing to understand. When you look closely, you can see that religion has all the fingerprints of human invention, not the flawless, universal truth of some perfect divine being. Think about the earliest humans. They lived in small tribes, completely at the mercy of nature. They had no idea about physics, biology, or astronomy. Lightning was terrifying, earthquakes could destroy entire settlements, and diseases struck without warning. Without science, the easiest explanation was to believe that invisible powers, spirits, gods, or ancestors, were behind everything. If the river flooded, maybe the river god was angry. If the hunt went well, maybe the spirits were pleased. It was a natural human reaction to attribute cause and effect to something personal, something like us, because our brains evolved to see patterns, even when they're not really there. And here's where the first clue comes in. The gods people believed in looked and acted suspiciously like the people themselves. Ancient gods got angry, jealous, hungry, lustful. They had families, rivalries, even wars. They demanded gifts, sacrifices, and praise, just like human rulers. If a god were truly all-powerful, perfect, and beyond human limitations, why would they need food offerings or constant flattery? These are very human needs. The fact that ancient gods behaved like flawed human kings suggests they were imagined by humans, not the other way around. When you look at the diversity of religions, it becomes even clearer. If there really were one true God who created humanity and wanted us to know them, why are there thousands of different gods across cultures and history? Ancient Egyptians worshipped Ra, Isis, and Osiris. The Greeks believed in Zeus, Athena, and Apollo. The Norse told stories about Odin, Thor, and Loki. In India, there were entire pantheons stretching back thousands of years. Even today, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and countless smaller religions all claim to have the truth. But they can't all be right, because they contradict each other. The far simpler explanation is that different human societies invented different religions based on their environment, needs, and imaginations. Here's a practical example. Imagine you're born in Saudi Arabia in the 9th century. You would almost certainly grow up believing in Islam, never questioning that the Quran is the literal word of God. If you were born in medieval Europe, you'd be raised as a Christian, convinced that the Bible is the ultimate truth. If you were born in ancient China, you might follow Taoism or Confucian traditions. The point is, your religion is overwhelmingly determined by the time and place of your birth, not by evidence or divine revelation. That's a huge sign that religion is a human cultural product, not a universal message from some cosmic being. Another important clue is how religions evolve over time. The gods and rules people believed in thousands of years ago often seem strange or even laughable today. For example, in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament God commands things that most modern believers completely ignore, like not wearing clothes made from two types of fabric or stoning people for working on the Sabbath. These rules made sense in the tribal societies of the time, but not now. Over centuries, religious leaders have reinterpreted, updated, and even abandoned old teachings to keep them relevant. This is exactly what happens with human-made systems, laws, traditions, cultures, not with an eternal, unchanging truth. You can also see human fingerprints in how religions are used for power. Throughout history, kings, emperors, and priests have used religion to control people. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was considered a god king, which made his rule unquestionable. In medieval Europe, the church crowned kings and claimed the power to excommunicate them, basically removing their right to rule. Even today, in some countries, questioning religion can get you jailed or worse. This political use of religion makes perfect sense if humans invented it. but makes no sense if it came from a loving God who values truth and freedom. Then there's the fact that religious stories often borrow from earlier myths. The story of a great flood, it appears in Mesopotamian myth, Hindu texts, and Native American legends long before the version in the Bible. The idea of a dying and rising God, you can find it in ancient Egypt with Osiris, in Greece with Dionysus, in Mesopotamia with Tammuz, long before Christianity told the story of Jesus. These similarities suggest that humans recycle and adapt stories, not that a god is revealing the same truth over and over. Some believers argue that religion is too complex and meaningful to be made up. But humans have invented incredibly complex things, languages, music, philosophy, entire legal systems, without divine help. The complexity of a religion is not proof of God. It's proof of human creativity and imagination. We can also see how religions change when new knowledge arrives. Before astronomy, people thought the Earth was the center of the universe, and religious authorities insisted on it. When science proved otherwise, religion had to adapt. Before germ theory, people thought disease was punishment from gods. When we learned about bacteria and viruses, that belief faded. If religion truly came from an all-knowing God, it wouldn't need constant correction by science. And finally, think about the nature of belief itself. No child is born believing in any god. Every child learns religion from their parents, community, and culture. If God were real and wanted everyone to know him, why wouldn't belief be natural and universal, like our ability to breathe or see the sun? Instead, belief must be taught, reinforced, and protected from doubt. That's exactly how human ideas work, not eternal truths. When you put all of this together, the human-like qualities of gods, the diversity of beliefs, the dependence on culture, the historical changes, the borrowing of myths, the political use, the constant need for adaptation, it becomes clear that religion fits the pattern of something invented by humans. It's a product of our fears, hopes, and imagination, shaped by our societies and histories. And this doesn't mean that religion has no value at all. It has inspired art, music, and acts of compassion. But value doesn't mean truth. Humans can create beautiful, moving things that aren't literally real, like novels, movies, or poetry. Religion, for all its beauty and influence, belongs in that same category, a powerful human story, not a divine message. If religion were truly divine, we'd expect it to rise above human flaws. But the truth is, it mirrors our imperfections almost perfectly. Look at the moral codes in different faiths. They often reflect the social norms and prejudices of the time when they were written, not some timeless moral truth. Ancient scriptures contain instructions that clearly come from human societies struggling to survive in harsh environments, not from an all-loving, all-knowing creator. They approve of slavery, treat women as property, punish harmless behaviors with death, and divide people into insiders and outsiders. These rules made sense for controlling ancient tribes, but today we see them for what they are: outdated human laws. One of the strongest signs of human invention is how religions conveniently benefit the people who lead them. Priests, shamans, imams, and prophets often have special privileges. In ancient cultures, the high priest might control access to the gods, deciding when rituals were done and what sacrifices were required. In some traditions, religious leaders were exempt from the very rules they enforced on others. The idea that a god would design a system where a small group gets power, wealth, and influence simply for claiming to speak for him seems far less likely than the idea that humans created religion to give themselves authority. We can see the pattern repeating even in recent history. Take Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism in the 1800s. He claimed to have received revelations from God, which just happened to allow him to take multiple wives, including underage girls, while still condemning others for sexual immorality. Or look at leaders like Jim Jones and L. Ron Hubbard. Jones led the People's Temple and ended with a mass suicide in Jonestown. Hubbard openly said, before founding Scientology, that the easiest way to make money was to start a religion. These are not divine blueprints, they are human strategies, often for power and control. Another point to consider is how religious beliefs tend to align perfectly with what was knowable at the time. Ancient religions didn't describe germ theory, DNA, or quantum physics. Instead, their cosmologies are full of flat Earths, dome-shaped skies, and magical thinking about diseases and disasters. This makes sense if people were making their best guesses with limited knowledge. But if a god truly revealed these religions, why wouldn't they contain accurate information about the world that only an all-knowing being could know? That would be the easiest way to prove divinity, but it never happens. Then there's the diversity within a single religion. Take Christianity. It has thousands of denominations, each claiming to interpret the same Bible correctly. They disagree on baptism, communion, women's roles, the afterlife, morality, politics, you name it. Islam too has Sunni, Shia, and countless smaller sects with major doctrinal differences. This isn't what you'd expect from a perfect divine message. It's exactly what happens when humans argue, interpret, and adapt ideas to suit their own beliefs. Religion also evolves to fit human desires. For example, many modern Christians reject the idea of hell or eternal damnation because it feels morally wrong to them. As societies become more compassionate, the image of God changes too, less wrathful, more loving. That's not because God has changed. It's because humans are reshaping religion to match their evolving ethics. We can also look at how religion borrows from political systems. The idea of a heavenly court with angels and demons looks a lot like the courts of ancient kings, with loyal servants and enemies plotting against the ruler. The idea of divine law, written down and enforced, mirrors the law codes of early civilizations like Hammurabi's Code. Heaven and hell themselves reflect the carrot-and-stick method of governance. Reward obedience, punish disobedience. These are not mysterious divine designs. They are the same tools human leaders have always used to control behavior. Another telling sign is the localization of gods. In ancient times, gods were often tied to specific places: a mountain, a river, a city. People believed their god was strongest in their own land and weaker elsewhere. Even in modern religions, pilgrimage sites hold special power, as if an all-present God somehow lives more in one spot than another. That's a very human way of thinking, like believing a king's throne is where his power resides. Let's also talk about miracles. In ancient times, miracle stories were everywhere, healing the sick, parting seas, stopping the sun. But in the modern world, where cameras are everywhere and events can be recorded instantly, these grand miracles have vanished. Religious believers still claim small-scale miracles, like a disease remission or finding lost keys after praying. But these are events that can happen naturally and be explained without divine intervention. The disappearance of big, undeniable miracles is exactly what you'd expect if they were just stories from a less skeptical age, not the work of an actual God. Psychology also gives us insight into why religions are so persuasive. Humans are prone to cognitive biases. We see patterns where none exist, pattern recognition. We remember hits and forget misses, confirmation bias. And we give weight to emotionally powerful stories over dry evidence, availability heuristic. Religion plays on all of these. When someone prays and something good happens, they credit the prayer. When nothing happens, they explain it as God's plan. This is not divine logic, it's human psychology. Fear plays a massive role too. The fear of death, the unknown, and losing loved ones drives many to religion. Promises of heaven and threats of hell are powerful emotional tools. If you tell someone that disbelief will lead to eternal suffering, it's no surprise they'll be hesitant to question. That's not evidence, it's coercion. Throughout history, this fear-based approach has been used not just in religion but in politics, business, and cults. The structure is the same. Keep people dependent by controlling what they fear and what they hope for. The moral argument for God often falls apart under scrutiny too. People claim that without religion there would be no morality. But history shows that moral ideas, like fairness, compassion, and cooperation, existed long before modern religions and exist in societies without them. Morality is a product of human empathy and social living, not divine command. In fact, some of the worst atrocities in history, crusades, inquisitions, witch hunts, terrorism, were committed in the name of religion. If these were truly divine systems, wouldn't they prevent such horrors, not inspire them? Even the emotional comfort religion provides can be explained in human terms. Believing in a loving God who watches over you can feel like having a protective parent. It's psychologically soothing, especially in times of crisis, but comfort doesn't prove truth. People find comfort in fiction, in daydreams, in childhood memories. But those things aren't real. The human need for comfort explains why religions are so emotionally appealing, even without evidence. Finally, the ultimate proof that religion is a human invention lies in its adaptability. When scientific discoveries, social changes, or political revolutions happen, religions adapt, or they fade away. Gods who once ruled the skies are now poetic metaphors. Myths that were once literal truth are now told as symbolic lessons. This is not the behavior of eternal truth. It's the evolution of a human idea trying to survive in a changing world. When you step back and see the big picture, it's almost undeniable. Religion looks like a mirror reflecting humanity, our hopes, fears, ignorance, creativity, and politics, rather than a window into the mind of a god. Every piece fits. The human-like gods, the culture-specific beliefs, the political uses, the outdated morals, the borrowed myths, the vanishing miracles, the psychological hooks, and the constant adaptation. That doesn't mean we have to throw away everything religion has given us. We can keep the art, the music, the community, the rituals, without pretending they come from a supernatural source. We can face reality with open eyes, knowing that meaning and morality come from us, not from a cosmic ruler. And in many ways, that's more empowering. Because if humans invented religion, then humans can also choose something better, something based on truth, compassion, and understanding, without fear or control. In the end, the evidence points to one clear conclusion. Religion was not handed down from the heavens. It was built from the ground up by people just like us. And recognizing that is not a loss. It's a step toward freedom.